Hi guys and welcome to Horologique. As you know, the fan favorite SKX was discontinued 2 years ago, which was a heartbreak for many fans of the brand, especially because Seiko didn't propose anything in its stead, but the 5KX, which is not a diver watch. Most of us Seiko lovers believe that if Seiko had put a 4R36 movement on the watch, on the previous SKX, they could have called it quids, and that would have made the perfect SKX update. But Seiko works in mysterious ways. However, the little brand Escapement Time has come up with a model that is virtually identical to the SKX, but for two little tweaks here that are mostly positive. You have got a Sapphire Crystal, you have got a lumed ceramic bezel insert, and you have got a 4R35 movement on it. And what's more, you can buy this little watch at only 92 euros. And of course I'm going to leave a link below where you can buy this little Escapement Time SKX. On paper, this should be like the perfect SKX Seiko never made. But is it? Let's find out. As this is the first Escapement Time that I review on the channel, I wanted to show you how it comes. It comes in a pretty standard, usual little box. And then it comes very well protected in these plastic bubbles so your watch travels completely safely. And here is the box. So let's check the dimensions first. So you've got a diameter of 42.5, although they say 41 on the site, I don't know why. You have got a height of 13.5 and you've got a log to log of 46 millimeters. And the log width is of course 22 like in the SKX. So identical dimensions to the SKX. And let's continue upon what is identical on these watches. Check the dials and look at the indices. The indices are exactly the same, pretty much, although the ones on the Escapement Time seem to hold a little bit more lume. They are a little thicker, it appears. Let's continue with the resemblances of these watches. So the bezel insert, you've got the same layout, although the numbers are different. You've got the same layout with the counted seconds to every second in there. The case is pretty much identical. The dimensions are identical. The shape of the crystal, or the flat crystal, is the same, with that little bevel. I don't know if you can see right at the edge of the crystal. You've got a very characteristic bevel of the SKX, and you have the same thing on the Escapement Time. So if you look at these two watches, especially, let me bring in the 009. If you look at these two watches, they look very much alike, don't they? Well, yes and no. Let's check the differences now. And let's start with the hands. The hands, they do keep the same shape of the SKX, but as you can see, they are much thinner. They appear to be much thinner. Look at the SKX, look at that big bold hour hand, and look at the Escapement Time. The hour hand is much thinner in there. Same thing for the minute hand. Look at the minute hand on the Escapement Time and look at the minute hand on the SKX. It is much thicker. See? First thing that changes, visually at least. Let's continue with the hands. Look at the hand from the Escapement Time. You've got the lollipop at the front of the hand, when in the SKX you have the counterbalance right there. And this, I think it is a bit better. I think this is the way the SKX 011 does it. The other thing that changes and that jumps to the eye the most, I believe, is the date. In the SKX you've got the 7S26 movement, which is a day-date movement, as you can see in there. In the Escapement Time they have decided to go with the NH35 instead of the NH36, which is a bit strange. I would have preferred that they use the NH36 just so they have a day date and just so they have the same aesthetic as the SKX. Maybe they just wanted some more symmetry. Who knows? Maybe that's the reason they did this. And the difference is that the date is framed in here, when in the SKX it was not framed at all. The other difference is that you get a different font. Look at the 10, for example. Not only is it bigger on the Escapement Time, but you do not have the ones are different. As you can see, the 20s as well, they use a totally different font and it is bigger. It is lumed and it is ceramic. So that is something that was missing from the SKX, which stuck until the end with aluminium bezel inserts. Alright, then the difference. The other difference that we can see looking at the front of these watches is the crowns. Look at the crown on the SKX. It is unsigned, of course, but the nerding is some kind of coin edge nerding. On the Escapement Time, they have taken another route. The nerding is, I think, better on the Escapement Time, and the teeth are just wider, and you've got a better grip. The crown is signed, which is a very nice touch at this price point. To sum the difference, when you look at the watch from the front, well, the hands are thinner, the crystal is sapphire. That is the big difference with the SKX, and that is something that most modders of the SKX did first. They replaced it with a sapphire crystal. I did on my 007K. I replaced the hard legs with a double dome sapphire crystal, as you can see the big dome there. So that is what I did first, but this one you've got a flat sapphire crystal, so you don't have to mod it anymore. We'll take a look at the lume video to see how they fare. The SKX was a lume monster on its time. Of course, it has now been superseded by the following offers from Seiko, and of course from the micro brands that are coming, but it is still a very good contender for lume. The Escapement Time has a BGW9 lume on the hands, on the dial, and of course on the bezel insert, so we'll take a look at that as well. Okay, I've charged these two equally. Let's see how they perform. Wow, you can see to the left a really nice lume from the Escapement Time. That is very nice. To the right, of course, the green lume from the SKX. Let's give it a few minutes and see what happens. So about 15 minutes later, actually the BGW9 on the Escapement Time looks a little bit better than the Superluminova on the Seiko, but both are very legible. And the good thing is that even the luminous bezel insert looks readable on the Escapement Time. The other thing that changes, and not exactly for better, is what you get at the back of the watch. So it is pretty sterile on the Escapement Time. You got almost nothing, you just have a little bit of specks around the sterile caseback, so nothing special. As on the SKX, you've got, of course, that beautiful Kanagawa wave. One of the main, at least my main pet peeve with the SKX was the movement. The 7S26 is an old movement. Even when this watch was released back in 1996, the norm was that your movements were hacking and hand winding. The 7S26 is none of those. In order to hand wind it, you have to wear the watch pretty much straight all the time, or you have to do what is known as a Seiko shuffle, which means you have to shuffle the watch to get it going, which is a bit annoying, and you have no hacking. You have a screw-down crown, of course, so let's check that. See, it screws down, and first position I can change the day and the date, but second position, the second hand does not stop. And that is where Escapement Time have done much better here with the 4R35. Again, I'm on the fence about that one because I would have loved them to put the 4R36, so you have a day and a date, but, well, you know, they, as I said before, they maybe did that for symmetry. Okay, so you've got a screw down crown as well, and first position you change the date, and second position You've got hacking, wonderful. First position, you can hand wind the watch. That is good, and that is something that was so much missing from the SKX. In terms of finishing, I believe that it's pretty much almost the same. I was comparing these watches, looking at them closely, and I don't believe that you've got a huge difference on finishing. For me, the brushing, the circular brushing on top of lugs is as well done on both. The definition of the different surfaces is as good on both. Again, the polishing for me is as good on both. Let's talk about bezel rotation. You know, that is very important for me. And let's start with the SKX. It is not firm, but it is quite pleasant. At least I like it. And it is very uniform. It is very clicky, very uniform. I like it very much. The very well-known thing is that Seikos almost never line up. This one does. Let's go with a little escapement time. The very good thing is that it does line up, and that is wonderful, but let's see how the bezel rotates. Yeah. It is much more gritty, and it is not really uniform. You have some parts that are a bit more gritty, others that are softer, and others that are still gritty again. So yeah, that is not wonderful, but well, anyway, it's only 90 euros, you have to remember that. I would have liked though, and I hope that Escapement Time get this sorted out and that they can have a better bezel rotation. So a pretty cool watch, this little Escapement Time SKX, one that jumps at the opportunity that Seiko left behind, and that is a very smart move according to me. Quality-wise, it is good. It is good enough, especially for a watch that is under 100 euros. All those nice characteristics for that kind of price makes it, I believe, a no-brainer. Of course, unless you want a real SKX, and in that case, you will have to pay, I don't know how much they go for these days, 300, 400 euros, even more sometimes. There's still a bit left, especially at creation watches, so if you want a real SKX, you may want to check that. But I believe that this one, if you want the feeling of an SKX, with the upgrades that we always wanted from the SKX, this is the one to go for. Of course, there are some little things that would be better, like for example, I would have liked a better bezel rotation. That is still a bit so-so, sadly, but for the price, with a lumed ceramic bezel insert with pretty decent lume and with an NH35, I believe this little watch is very spot on if you want the SKX look with the upgrades. So thank you very much for having watched the video. There's a lot more to come, so make sure you stick around, and until then I'll be seeing you very soon. Goodbye.